Steelers have lost their last 4 games in a row. And at this point, this team looks one and done in the NFL playoffs yet again. Before I get into the last 4 games, I have to talk about the playoff implications. With the Steelers losing, the Cincinnati Bengals still have a chance. If the Bengals get in, it'll be because the Denver Broncos will lose, and the same with the Miami Dolphins. Since the Steelers lost, you will now either face the Houston Texans on the road. That's only if the Los Angeles Chargers were to go out and lose against the Raiders. But if the Chargers go out there and they defeat the Las Vegas Raiders, which is a great chance, they will have to face the Baltimore Ravens on the road. Now let's get into the last 4 games. Russell Wilson looks just like how he looked with the Denver Broncos in his first season. Russell Wilson has not played good. And before you get into the comments that I'm fully blaming Russell Wilson, I'm not. It has a lot to do with Coach Tomlin and Arthur Smith. But right now I want to talk about good old Russ. Because when Russ came in at the beginning point of this season, when they benched Justin Fields, it was a celebration. They put in Russell Wilson. Russ looks good. Russ is cooking. They went against the New York Jets, went against the New York Giants. They beat the Washington Commanders and the Baltimore Ravens. Russ looked very good. And he had a solid outing against the Cleveland Browns, even though they lost that matchup. In the last 4 games, we've seen Russell Wilson look terrible. I want to start off with today's matchup against the Bengals. They lost this matchup 19-17. The defense did everything right to go out there and win this football game. The defense held Joe Burrow, MVP caliber season, phenomenal player, to 19 points. And the most points that the Steelers muster up was 17. They did have a touchdown early in the game with Najee Harris. And they basically did nothing for 2 quarters. Nothing. And when they got Pat involved, they got a touchdown. Russell Wilson missed key passes, bad clock management by Russell Wilson late in the 4th quarter. It was a minute remaining. Russell Wilson wants to go out there. We're beyond 30 seconds at this point. Russell Wilson wants to go out there. He wants to run for 2 to 3 yards. The clock is still ticking. They teach you this in high school. They drill this into you in college. Timeouts are important. And if you don't feel like you're going to get the first down and you're a quarterback, throw the football away. We still have downs to mess with, and we have a timeout. Lamar Jackson knows this. Josh Allen knows this. Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert. When I look at Russell Wilson, he has the same mistakes that he made in his sophomore season with the Seattle Seahawks. And I can't blame this on Coach Tomlin, because Coach Tomlin had to use that timeout when Russell Wilson took a dumb sack after that dumb play. Russ is a nice guy to root for, nice guy off the field, one of the nicest guys you can meet. But when I look at him on the field right now in the last 4 games, man, he has not played good. He has played like hot garbage at times. He can't see the middle of the field. When earlier in the season, he did see the middle of the field to get the football to George Pickens and to get the football to Calvin Austin III. He missed key passes in today's matchup. He was not good. He lost his team the game against the Baltimore Ravens. And I understand it's 53 men on the roster, and it's a whole coaching staff. He goes into the red zone. He fumbles the football. Just slide. Slide with the football. Just slide, Russ. Fumbles the football in the red zone. You could walk away with 3 points or better. Throws a pick 6 in that matchup. That was it. I don't care if you had the 2000s Ravens defense. When you put your team behind the 8 ball like that, you're going to lose. It's situational football. That's what has made Tom Brady so great. The same with Patrick Mahomes. The same with Lamar Jackson. They know situations. They don't put their team behind the 8 ball. And they know, hey, the offense is having an off day. Let's kick this field goal with Boswell. Let's trust the defense. Let's get the kicker into the right situation. But Russ didn't do it. He didn't deliver in today's matchup. It wasn't all on him, but he didn't help them win the game. And that is what franchise quarterbacks do. They go out there, they help you win football games. And he didn't. He didn't against the Bengals. He didn't against the Kansas City Chiefs. He had a turnover in the red zone in that matchup. Could have walked away with points, but you didn't. Against the Baltimore Ravens, I just listed those turnovers in that game. Against the Philadelphia Eagles, he did not have a turnover in that matchup, but Najee Harris fumbles the football. They can't overcome dumb mistakes. They just can't. This team cannot. So holding on to the football and taking those dumb sacks, that's going to hurt you. Now, call me crazy. It's a chance they could go out there, they could beat the Baltimore Ravens in the NFL playoffs. That has been the one thorn in Lamar Jackson's side, the Steelers. Even in the last game, they were sticking in there until Russ had those dumb turnovers. Against the Houston Texans, you could possibly get right. And I hope that's the case for Coach Tomlin. I'm going to speak on that at the later part of this video towards the end. This offense is just not good enough. I look at Arthur Smith. Let's start off with Arthur Smith with the dumb play calls. They go for it 4th and 1. I love an aggressive team. They're in their own 35. Let's go for it. They didn't run the football with Najee Harris. They didn't run the football with Cordero Patterson. They ran a quarterback sneak. They did not get it with Russell Wilson. Why not put in Justin Fields for the quarterback sneak? I don't know. Ask Arthur Smith. Just an idiot at this point. They ran the football with Jaylen Warren. You have a physical running back in Najee Harris. Yes, he's slow coming out of the backfield than anyone else in that backfield, but he can get you a yard or two. He has a lot of power behind his punch. He can break tackles. I've seen him break tackles before against the Washington Commanders, and he broke tackles in this matchup. Why not run the football with Najee Harris? Why not go out there and run the football with Cordell Patterson? Why not go out there and get Justin Fields involved? Justin Fields has juice. You love to run Justin Fields anyway. You did it against the Philadelphia Eagles. You did it against the Cincinnati Bengals in the first matchup. So why not run the football with him? You gave the football to Jaylen Warren, and Jaylen Warren is a very good running back. Don't get me wrong. But in short yardage situations, you don't put in Jaylen Warren. It is so many coaches in this league, man. I tell you, they don't know what they're doing. Head coaches and offensive coordinators. The coaching in today's NFL is very mediocre. You can say that about the quarterback play. I look at the coaching in today's NFL. Half of these guys is straight out terrible. The only reason that they have jobs is because they are friends with head coaches or they're friends with somebody in the front office. The coaching malpractice in today's league, man, it just makes me shake my head. I'm going to also talk about Arthur Smith in this situation. Coach Lou, very good defensive mind. Shout out to Coach Lou, defensive coordinator for the Bengals. This is what good coaches do. In the first matchup, they torched the Cincinnati Bengals underneath. Short passes, Najee Harris. Short passes to George Pickens. Short passes to Calvin Austin III. So the Bengals came out. Let's play up. Press man coverage. Beat us man to man. Have safeties over the top. Mix in some zone, but be physical. Let's play up top. Let's force these guys off the line of scrimmage. Let's get physical. Hey, linebacker Jermaine Pratt, be on lookout for Najee Harris out of the backfield. So every time you throw the football to those guys underneath, it's a defender right there. Every single time you do that, it's a defender. Why not be more creative? Coach Lou came out and he adjusted. Arthur Smith didn't. You had an entire week because I came on here a week ago and said, man, 3 games in 11 days, that's ridiculous for any team in the NFL. That's what I said. And you guys let me hear it. So I'm going to come back today and have a counter argument. The last time this team played was on Christmas Day. You had an extended week off. You had plenty of time to go out there, hang out with the family on Christmas Day, even though you lost. It's life beyond football. Hey, coaching staff, let's get back in this office Thursday, Friday. Let's go out there. Let's prepare against the Bengals. You weren't prepared in the first half. Instead of you going out there and running more crossing routes, instead of going out there and feeding Big Pat, you didn't do that. And tight ends have killed the Cincinnati Bengals repeatedly this season. They've crushed them. But when you get Pat involved, it's too late. And when you did get him involved, you got a receiving touchdown out of it. And you went completely away from that because you wanted to force feed George Pickens. George Pickens had his worst game of his life, dating back to high school. The man had 1 catch, 0 receiving yards. He was butterfingers today. He was running the wrong routes. He was giving up on plays. He did not look good. And I blame Omar Khan for this, for the simple fact that they don't have another valuable wide receiving option besides George Pickens. Because he's their best wide receiver. When he has an off day, no one else can come in and match his productivity. Calvin Austin III, solid player. He's not a true number 1. Mike Williams, he'll give you big plays here and there, and he had a phenomenal catch in today's matchup, and they stopped getting him the football. I wonder why. Arthur Smith is an idiot yet again. They got him the football down the sideline and came up with a big play. When George Pickens can't get going, this entire offense doesn't look the same. In the past, we've seen the Steelers go out there and have talent. Juju Smith-Schuster, Martavius Bryant, Antonio Brown. They've always had a strong wide receiving core. Even though the running backs may have been suspect at that time, the wide receivers are there to help out the Steelers. The wide receivers will always be there. They can get open, run some post routes, run some comeback routes. This team rarely run comeback routes. It is rare for them to run a comeback route. They just stopped running the play-action bootleg entirely into the second half. And this is what this team is built around, running the football. You have 2 tight ends against a team that struggled to cover tight ends, and yet you did not use them effectively enough. That's on coaching. Use Darnell Washington. Use Big Pat. You got a penalty out of using Darnell Washington in the red zone. Arthur Smith has not been a good offensive coordinator. And that's going to tie into my Mike Tomlin argument later in this video. The defense over the last 4 games, they've done the best that they can. Against the Chiefs, it was a terrible outing, one of their worst performances all season long. Travis Kelce's wide open, miscommunication. Now the players, you got to communicate better. But at the same time, Coach Austin, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing in the bye weeks? What are we doing during the breaks? What are you doing with your team? What are you doing with your unit? And I say this about every other team. So it's not just this team like I'm picking on this coach. I said this about the Chicago Bears. Said this about the Chargers when they give up big plays. It should not be miscommunication. These are professional athletes. You're a professional coach. Dial this in. They should not have wide open tight ends going for touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes goes untouched. Now, today's matchup against Joe Burrow, they were able to go back there, put pressure on Joe Burrow with Herbig, Cameron Hayward, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith. But against the Chiefs, they didn't even want to play on Christmas Day. Never put the Steelers on Christmas Day ever again. I go and I look at that game against the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson moving outside the pocket, toying with this defense. They couldn't stop Derrick Henry. You're not making adjustments either, Coach Austin. Now, in the second half, you made a lot of adjustments against the Bengals. Congratulations. You had a strong outing against this team. 19 points is what you held Joe Burrow to, and this offense. Round of applause. And I'm not being sarcastic here. That's a good coaching job. But you need to step it up every single week. This defense should be top 5. They should be performing every single week with the players that you've been given. I've seen defenses with less talent step up in big moments. You have TJ Watt, you have Alex Highsmith. Move those players around. I'm watching TJ Watt get double teamed, and yet you don't move him around. You moved him around once in the first matchup against the Bengals. Move him around. Move TJ Watt around. When you look at TJ Watt, he's only getting 1 sack every other game, or just 2 sacks every other game. They're not moving him around. Yes, you have Alex Highsmith. Move TJ around. Just move him around more. Cameron Hayward, they're going to get home. They're going to put pressure on the quarterback. But as a coach, you have to set up your personnel. And I also look at this defense. They're dealing with a lot of problems with scrambling quarterbacks. Speaking of Lamar Jackson had a great day. Joe Burrow had solid moments. Jameis Winston had a very good game in the first encounter Thursday Night Football. This team has to find a way to go out there and have gap responsibilities. That's why Patrick Mahomes crushed you on Christmas Day. Because you're worried about getting to that quarterback and you're not worried about containing him. You're just worried about rushing him. You have to worry about containing the quarterback. You have the interior presence with Keanu Ben, with Cameron Hayward. It's not always about sacks. It's about going back there and putting pressure on the quarterback and forcing him to make dumb decisions. Look at what the Chargers do. It's not always about sacks with Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack. They can get to the quarterback. They crowd him. And when you contain a quarterback, he can't rush to the outside. Now you hope that you can close in and you can get him and run more press man coverage. That press man coverage may get you beat, but hopefully your pass rush can get home with the great players that you have on that front 7. Because the pitch and catch with Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, that's going to beat you every time. The pitch and catch with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow early in this game is going to get you every time. And the way that you beat that, you don't sit back and zone. You don't just stay off because you're scared of opposing defensive players, of opposing offensive players. You go up with your cornerbacks, with Joey Porter Jr., with Corey, with Benny Bishop, with Dante Jackson, even though he missed today's game. You go up there, you press them up, and you force those guys to beat you off the line of scrimmage. And if they beat you, you have Mika Fitzpatrick over the top. You have Deshaun Elliott over the top. That's how you solve your problems. And you can't tell me the Steelers aren't capable of doing this because they did this against the Baltimore Ravens in their first encounter. That's when they first did this. They are capable of doing it. They're just incompetent at times. This coaching staff really pisses me off with the talent that they have on the defensive end because this defense could be even better. Coach Austin is not a terrible defensive coordinator, but he can be better. The rushing defense, I don't have anything negative to say about it. Elandon Roberts is their best run-stopping linebacker. Patrick Queen overall is their best linebacker. Peyton Wilson, very good rookie. He's going to be very good long-term as long as he can stay healthy. Now I get to the Mike Tomlin situation. You haven't won a football game in the NFL playoffs since 2016. Lucky for this team, they clinched the NFL playoffs many weeks ago because if they didn't, this would be a different situation. Coach Tomlin is not a terrible coach. He's not horrible. I know that a lot of Steeler fans are going to say, fire Tomlin. He has to go. Hear me out. When Calvin Austin III fumbles a football on special teams, that has nothing to do with coaching. When Russell Wilson's going down there and taking dumb sacks. When he's throwing the football into coverage and it goes for an interception in the red zone. When he fumbles a football and he doesn't slide down, that has nothing to do with coaching. When Russell Wilson is burning time off the clock because he wants to run for those 2 to 3 yards. And Coach Tomlin has told his quarterbacks in the past, throw the football away, live to see another day. That has nothing to do with Coach Tomlin. With this team being underprepared, it has everything to do with Coach Tomlin. So I want you guys to understand where I'm coming from. I judge coaches a bit differently than everyone else. Coach Tomlin has been disappointing over the last few years. He was very underwhelming with Big Ben when they had Big Ben, Le'Veon, Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, and Juju. Because you should have brought a Super Bowl home, but you were getting outcoached by Belichick on a consistent basis. We're even talking about the past here. I hold Mike Tomlin accountable for this because this has nothing to do with the players. You hired Randy Fichtner. Then you went on and you hired Matt Canada, two of the worst coordinators in Steelers history. Now look at Arthur Smith right now. He's not a good offensive coordinator. You need to figure this out. Because you can't figure out the offense side of the ball, they're going to get you out of there eventually. And I know we can look at the Steelers right now. We say that they don't ever fire coaches. They did something rare last season. They fired Matt Canada at the halfway point, a close friend with Coach Tomlin. And I'm not coming on him right now and saying that this 4-game streak, you should fire Mike Tomlin, you should let him go. But it's going to be a lot of whispers. And this has been the case over the last 5 to 6 years with this particular fan base. They'll say, fire Mike Tomlin. They'll lose 3 games in a row. Fire Mike Tomlin. We saw this last season. When Kenny Pickett went down, they went to Mitch Trubisky, 2 bust. Fire Mike Tomlin. They fired Matt Canada. They put in Mason Rudolph. He rallied the troops. They made the NFL playoffs. They did lose against the Buffalo Bills. Granted, your quarterback was Mason Rudolph. And Mason Rudolph doesn't look good right now with the Tennessee Titans. And you did have an aging Big Ben against the Cleveland Browns, and you lost that matchup. The Steelers should have never been in that situation to begin with. The fact that he got them to the NFL playoffs, round of applause. But Mike Tomlin came out, and he said this. You didn't say this. I didn't say this. He said the standard is the standard. The standard are 6 rings. This team has not had major postseason success in a very long time. The standard for the Steelers organization, regardless of who is on the field, when you look at that logo, the standard is AFC Championship, Super Bowl. Right now, that's not realistic for the Steelers. That's not realistic for Coach Tomlin to come out and say that. This is a very important year in his career. He just got a contract extension for 3 years. So the ones that are beating on the table, fire Tomlin, I don't think it's going to happen. Even if they would go out there and get blown out by the Baltimore Ravens or the Buffalo Bills. I don't think that would happen. The Baltimore Ravens or even the Houston Texans, I don't think that would happen. But the defense, they're playing well enough. The offense has to be better. And I look at Tomlin in this situation. You brought in these 3 bad coordinators year in and year out. It's time for you to sit down in the meetings. If you like how your offense looks, eventually they're going to move on from you. Because to run the football and stop the run narrative doesn't work in today's NFL. You have to be able to move the football deep down the field. And the moon ball isn't going to save you every single time. Russell Wilson has to play better. George Pickens has to play better. This situation should never happen with him again. And I'm going to be very interested in watching this situation with George Pickens because he has the same diva-like mentality that other Steelers receivers have had in the past. If you go back and pay attention around the 3rd quarter, you can look on the sideline. He's chirping at the fans and they start booing him. He got upset. And this is a player that had character issues in the past. I look at George Pickens right now. Be more mature. Don't worry about the fans. Don't worry about what anyone else says. Go out there and play better. When you're having a game that he's having and you're seeing him struggle, give him a screen pass. Even though he's playing terrible and he doesn't deserve that reward, he is so damn impactful. Get him the football. You don't have Deontay Johnson to come in and take the load off of George Pickens. He's your only number 1 wide receiver. You have to get him involved. And I've seen Coach Tomlin go out there and give him words of encouragement. That is what coaches do. But Tomlin, you need to rally the troops because this is serious. You go out there and you possibly lose against the Houston Texans or the Baltimore Ravens, that hot seat is going to be really hot compared to what the fans want. And to just be honest with you guys, the Steelers, they don't listen to the fan base because if that was the case, they would have fired Coach Tomlin 4 to 5 years ago. And yes, the fan base, they've been saying fire Tomlin for that long. But when I look at the fumbles, I look at the interceptions, that has nothing to do with Coach Tomlin. That's just the players not being good enough. But let me know in the comment section below how you guys feel about the Steelers moving forward in the NFL playoffs. Right now, they're in a terrible state. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless.